You do not enjoy watching porn, you are dependent on it. You don't enjoy it, but it's just a little less painful than reality. All right, so in this video, I'm gonna explain to you how you can change your brain's belief from porn feels really good to porn feels terrible, and I absolutely hate this. And this is important because I remember many times in my own journey at the very, very rock bottom of my porn addiction, I remember times where I actually gave up mentally. I kind of checked out and I thought, you know what, this porn thing, it's just impossible to beat, and I'm just gonna give in and accept that it's gonna be part of my life for the rest of my life. And when it really came down to it, when the rubber hit the road, the last string that my brain pulled, the last card that my brain pulled was always porn feels good. And that's the ultimate justification. If you really break down why you tend to use porn or masturbate, even though you hate it, even though you have high values, even though it causes so much pain in your life, ultimately when it comes down to it, the brain's last justification is porn feels really good. All right, so I'm gonna give you 3 methods right now to change your belief in your mindset from porn feels good to porn feels terrible for me, all right? And I like to talk about this because sometimes on social media and stuff, when I talk about this concept of you don't enjoy porn, but you're actually dependent on it and it feels like an enjoyment, but it's actually a dependency, a lot of the trolls come up, right, as they do, and they go, you know what, I actually enjoy porn. I thought about what you said, but I really, really just enjoy it. Leave me alone, right? And they kind of go like this. And then so I have conversations with guys about this, and I've come up with these 3 ways to kind of understand ourselves. And I don't try to argue with people because I don't think that's an effective way to change people's behaviors, but I try to help them maybe think about their porn addiction from a different perspective, right? So number 1 is to think about that as I don't enjoy porn, but I am dependent on it. And you can think about it as a kind of a tangential example with people that develop cigarette addiction, right? The first time people smoke, it's not a very pleasant experience. It makes you cough, generally speaking, right? And when people start smoking, they don't think that in 10 years from now, in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they're going to be requiring multiple packs a day just to survive. And it kind of seems like enjoyment, and they tell themselves that I enjoy smoking, therefore it's okay. And it brings me joy and relaxes me, it's stress relief. But actually it's not enjoyment, it's a dependency. And you can think about that with any addiction, the same with porn. When people first start watching porn, they do not think that they're going to be addicted to it, and they're going to require it just to not be in pain, just to live their lives 10 years later down the road, right? So think about it like that. I don't enjoy watching porn, but actually it's a dependency that I've developed over time. And it feels like enjoyment because it's a dependency because I don't know how to live without it, right? Now the second kind of perspective that I like to give, if that's not enough to help people change their behavior, is to understand that the people that have the greatest success with porn recovery long term is they're able to think about life from longer time horizons, and they don't think in short-term wins. They think in long-term wins, all right? And this is why I think generally people that are older, have more experience, people that are, let's say, more successful in fitness, in business, and elsewhere is because they're able to see how their daily actions impact their long-term results. Specifically, when you watch porn, in the moment, you can say, yes, it feels good. Yes, it's stress relief. Yes, it relaxes you temporarily, yes. But if you think honestly from a long-term time horizon, from 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road, has this habit really brought you enjoyment from a long-term perspective? Or has it brought you more torment than anything else? And if people are really honest with themselves, it's like, well, I enjoy it temporarily in the moment, yes. But if I look at my life in the last 5-10 years, I have been emotionally a wreck, emotionally up and down. I have been physically exhausted. I have not had energy. I have not had motivation. My emotions are getting the best of me. I feel shame and guilt. I'm riddled with feelings of unconfidence because I'm not able to look at people directly. I'm not able to communicate well and sincerely with women, with my wife, with my kids. I don't feel connected to God. So if people think from long-term time horizons, then it's actually not an enjoyable behavior, but actually causes more destruction than anything else. And it's my belief in what I've seen and perceived in people that I've worked with long-term is that the more you can develop the muscle of thinking long-term in longer time horizons, the the more you can develop that muscle, the less porn and masturbation will be an issue for you, because you see how the small daily decisions impact you long term, all right? And it's a muscle that needs to be developed. And I think that the fundamental reason that people are more susceptible to addiction is because people that are thinking more short term are more susceptible to developing the long-term addictions, right? Because they're not thinking long-term. They're not thinking how the behavior is affecting them long-term. So you can think about this for fitness, right? People that do not succeed with fitness and they start a trend and then they fall off the wagon within a few weeks or a few months is because they're thinking, I'm going to get fit in 1 month. I'm going to get fit today. I'm going to get fit and have a six-pack abs in 3 months or 6 months. But it's simply the people that think, even if it takes me 10 years, I'm just going to keep doing the work and eventually I'll get there. Those people succeed and they find ways to enjoy it. And the process to get there is a lot more enjoyable as well, because they're not beating themselves up, not meeting the arbitrary milestone goals that they've placed in their lives. So it's simply just a matter of, am I doing the work every day that will get me to my goal eventually? And those people succeed with fitness. You can also see it as business as well, right? People that have long-term successful businesses aren't thinking, I'm going to get rich this year. I'm going to be a millionaire this year, which it's noble to have a ambitious goal. But if you are emotionally wrapped up in that goal, it is usually more destructive than not, because chances are you're either of two things. You're going to hit your goal and you're going to think, okay, what's next, right? There's another milestone to get to. Or more likely, you're going to not hit your goal because it's too short and too arbitrary. And then what are you left with? This isn't for me. Fitness is not for me. Business is not for me. Porn recovery is not for me because I tried and it didn't work. But you were thinking short term. So that's my really important second tip for you guys, is really to start developing the muscle of thinking long term. And if you do that more and more, I promise you will succeed, all right? And what I have noticed as a kind of a quick life hack to actually doing this is trying to see your exercise as a big domino to helping you have long-term sexual integrity and sobriety and porn recovery. Because if you can develop the habit of long-term thinking through fitness and exercise, I think it's a very important step to getting long-term sobriety with sexual integrity, right? So it's a good way to start thinking in that sense. All right, so third method for you guys today is to understand that you don't enjoy watching porn, but it's actually just a little less painful than reality. It's a little less painful than the reality of feelings of loneliness, depression, stress, anxiety, boredom, all the things that tend to lead you to wanting to act out, right? It's a little less painful than that. And it feels like enjoyment because it's an escape. It's an easy escape. And it feels like enjoyment. And you're conflating two things. Your brain, in particular, is conflating enjoyment with a little less painful than reality, so it feels like enjoyment. So sometimes when I get in calls with guys and they tell me about the reason that they watch porn, and they're like, I really can't figure out what it is. Like, I don't feel like I'm particularly stressed or bored or anxious or depressed. I just randomly am triggered and decide to go down that rabbit hole, right? And so what I've identified in some men, a lot of men, is that they are living in a constant state of emotional pain and turmoil, constantly. Which is why when they are triggered and susceptible to acting out and slipping up, they don't notice it, because it's just an easy escape from the constant reality of being in pain, of constant reality of being in stress, of being anxious, of being lonely. So what I'm here to help you guys do is understand that. And I'm not saying this out of judgment, but only out of love and compassion, so that you can understand it and so you know how to deal with it. Because when you understand what the real issue is going on, then you know how to address it. Then you have an equation for success. Then you have a path to victory, because you know how to address it. And when you address that and understand that you have a significant roadblock in helping you have long-term success, a constraint in your life, and you address that continually, long-term, guys, not I'm going to quit porn in 1 month. Let me tell you guys with certainty that quitting porn is instantaneous. Recovery takes time. Healing takes time. You don't need to keep porn in your life in order to heal, in order to recover. That part takes time. That part takes investment. But it doesn't mean that you need to keep porn and masturbation in your life, because that is just a symptom. That's just a manifestation of a deeper root issue for you guys, right? So to recap here, number one, think of these frameworks, right? You don't enjoy porn, you're dependent on it. It's not enjoyable, brain. Tell that to your brain. You're just dependent on it. Number 2, start thinking long-term instead of short-term. Think long-term gains and not short-term wins. Number 3, understand that watching porn masturbating is a little less painful than reality, and that's why it feels like enjoyment, but it's not. So here's a call to action for you guys in this video. Ask yourself, how long-term minded are you as an individual? And this is not an opportunity to beat yourself up and think like, oh, I've been throwing away my fitness and my education and my health and my spiritual practices out the window and woe is me. I'm here to help you guys understand, but honestly assess yourself with love. How long-term minded are you? And how short-term minded are you? And honestly ask yourself that and ask yourself, how can you develop a longer time horizon? How can you develop the muscle of thinking in long-term thinkings and act and do that? And I can tell you guys right now with certainty that starting with fitness is a really good place to start. Starting with exercise, or starting a business, or starting with something, anything at all that does require you to practice and use the muscle of thinking long-term. You need to practice it and develop that ability. All right, lots of love to you guys. See ya.